Peter said, I'm Earl Weener, a board member with the National Transportation Safety Board. Our team has been hard at work today gathering facts about this derailment accident, and I want to take this opportunity to update you on what we've learned as of this point. As I stated yesterday, we have 12 team members on scene working this accident. So far today, the crew has been interviewed. No issues have been identified with their operation of the train. We've examined the signal data and imagery, and there have been no anomalies or malfunctions that have been identified on how the signals operated. The signals verified that the crew was operating with a clear signal, i.e. That's a green light as far as they're concerned. Currently, all of the cars involved are off the tracks. A large number of them were able to be re-railed, which allowed us to examine a number of the components. And from what we've examined so far, we've identified no issues or anomalies with the cars involved. We've done an initial review of the event recorders. We've sent them along with the footage from the forward video recorders on the locomotives to our labs in Washington, D.C. for further analysis, and they should arrive tomorrow. From what we did initially find on the event recorders, the train was being operated appropriately, both in terms of speed and operating authority. And there was no indication as the train passed the hot box inspection device that there was any problem with the rolling stock of the cars. We've also obtained the recordings of the initial 911 calls and are awaiting the fire department's timeline for their response to this accident. As to the track, we've recovered a large number of the rail pieces and are in the process of reconstructing those for examination. We have an NTSB metallurgist who will be joining us tomorrow, and his focus will be on the track itself, the rails itself. We are gathering and are reviewing records regarding previous inspections on the rail for internal defects. We also plan to conduct interviews with the railroad roadmaster, the track supervisor and track foreman to understand what maintenance may have been recently done on this part of the track. As far as the cars go, in particular the tank cars that were carrying the alcohol, those are relatively new cars. They were built in 2007 to standards that were in place at that time. Two of the three tank cars were traveling together, were hooked together. The middle car did not survive the derailment. The outer two cars did survive the derailment with no rupture. But the release of the ethanol from the middle car was immediately ignited on fire, and the fire proceeded to impinge on the other two cars and cause them to eventually rupture. As of today, the cars have been moved off the tracks, have been emptied, and will be carefully examined. This will be our last on-scene investigation, or on-scene briefing rather. However, members of the investigation team will be remaining on scene again for another week to 10 days. They'll continue to gather facts in this fact-gathering portion of the investigation. Further information regarding the investigation can be obtained from the Public Affairs Office in Washington, D.C. The telephone number there is area code 202-314-6100. Within 30 days, we'll be issuing a factual preliminary report, and that'll provide the facts and circumstances as we know it at that time. So with that, I'd be happy to take questions at this time.
Yeah, Tom Brockman, NBC4. You've ruled out a lot in terms of what things would be in place. Have you seen anything, be it cars, the track, any other kind of conditions that seem to be abnormal?
Well, we're quite interested in what was... Oh, the question is, we've ruled out a number of things. So what are we, in fact...
Have you seen anything whatsoever that strikes you as being abnormal that could have contributed to this?
The areas that we have found to be having some abnormality probably relate more to the track than anything else. So we've recovered, as I said, a number of pieces of the track, but trying to put them back together is a giant puzzle, a very heavy one, by the way. And not all of the pieces have been retrieved. We may be missing 20 feet of track, but there have been some very extensive searches to find those pieces of track. So those will be looked at in combination with any marks that might be on wheels to see if we can identify, was there a broken rail.
Tara Morgan, ABC 6 News. What kind of information can you get from the video images if it was at night? Is that going to be helpful or not?
What kind of information can we get from the forward-looking video cameras? As you point out, it was at night, and so we, of course, don't have the kind of visual acuity at night that we would like to have during the day. There's a possibility that we might be able to spot a broken rail by reflections in the light. But as I said, we have not had an opportunity to actually look at the videotapes, so that'll be one of the first things done when they arrive back in Washington. Yes?
Captain Miners, WBNS TV. Two questions. How unusual is it to be at this point in the investigation and not see anything that you can point to that could possibly lead to an explanation of what caused the crash? And two, tell us a little bit about what the metallurgist will be looking for. Will he be looking at hot kinks in the track?
So there are two questions. The first was, how unusual is it to be at this point in the investigation with ruling things out? And secondly, what are we going to focus on with the metallurgist coming on scene? So let me take the first one. An investigation like this is always a bit complicated. So you've got a lot of moving parts, so to speak, a lot of loose ends. And we're just happy to be able to tie up a few of the loose ends. We have not tied up all of the loose ends by any means. The track is of particular interest to us, and that's the reason we're taking one of our metallurgists from the headquarters. What he'll be looking at in particular is the characteristics of the track the rail breakage. So trying to understand what, was the breakage a cause of the accident, or was it breakage caused by the accident? So we at least hope to get a little bit better insight into what the track condition was by looking at the metallurgy of the pieces that we have retrieved.
Would hot kinks be part of that?
I don't think we figure hot kinks is a very likely issue here. This was at night, basically under cooler temperatures. The hot kinks are not as much of a problem in that kind of a situation.
Can you talk a little bit about the frequency of trains that go through that stretch? It's pretty heavily used, I think. And have other trains prior to that reported any issues in the 24 hours or whatever preceding this incident that you can look at, or are you interviewing those other train crews to determine if they notice something out of line?
I guess the question was, have we had any information about other problems with that particular piece of track, and how often are trains operated through that track?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, if there was anything current or recent that somebody made note of.
I understand from Norfolk Southern that there's about 22 trains a day that go through that particular track. As far as any indication of problems in the 24 hours preceding it, I'm not aware of any. Were you made aware of any problems in that?
No. The train crew that we interviewed basically said they didn't observe any anomalies in the track.
Is it possible that you won't find a cause, or do you think you will find a cause?
Well, in an investigation of this sort,
Repeat the question.
is it possible that we won't find a cause? It's always possible that we won't find a cause. On the other hand, we've been remarkably successful in finding a probable cause. So I think in this particular case, we're quite hopeful that we will be able to identify what the immediate source of the derailment was.
Did the train engineer say anything about going down the track, he noticed something, did it happen just suddenly to his surprise? Can you give us a sense of what it was like for him?
Well, as a train engineer,
Just repeat the question.
yeah, was a train engineer in the interview, did the train engineer say anything about any anomalies on the tracks? The answer is we have not heard the interviews. The interviews were conducted by other parties at our request. So we have not yet gotten what the train crew interviews have said.
What does that mean, other parties?
We delegated that to
We have parties that are called the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers, the United Transportation Union, the Federal Railroad Administration, and one of our survival factor staff. I assigned to interview the train crew. There was 3 train crew members. And we have not transcribed the interviews. They just were finished late this afternoon.
Thank you, Si. And I might point out that the initial timeline from the event recorders indicated that the crew was, for all practical purposes, operating the train by the book.
Take one more question, please.
All right. Thank you.